Hey guys, I'm Jax, and this is my spoiler-free review, plus my spoiler review for the new horror/supernatural drama film, Presence. A film told exclusively from the point of view of some kind of ghost-like presence. Presence is a haunting and ethereal exploration of grief and family struggles told through the perspective of this omnipresent, ghost-like creature that just observes as this new family come into this haunted house. Every single frame of this film is from the ghost perspective. I'm not like a camera guy, but it felt like it was this weird wide angle lens kind of situation that made everything feel a little weird, and every single second of the film has the same look. It all looks like it was filmed from the same camera, the same lens, and it just observes. It just watches as this family drama plays out over a course of many weeks and months, and the ghost is just kind of like sitting there being like, wow, this is better than cable TV. This is crazy. And the ghost just kind of like watches them, and it's just, I don't know, it made me feel like it felt really real and gave it a raw authenticity that I wasn't expecting for such a gimmicky type of film. Because yeah, a film told exclusively from the point of view of a ghost trapped in a haunted house is a gimmick. But I do love a gimmick when the gimmick transcends its gimmick status, if you will, and becomes something really truly powerful and emotionally resonant with the audience, or at least with me, that couldn't really have been done if it had not been told via this gimmick that is the ghost's perspective. The ghost would just kind of watch stuff play out, and it was kind of in this really interesting, not non-linear Tarantino where like we're going into the future, then back into the past and jumping all over the place, but it is segmented in these really interesting kind of ways where like the ghost will be watching somebody and just kind of like observing them, and they'll be like, oh my god, this thing's going on with my wife and it's no good, and then the screen will just cut to black. Because every scene is just one long shot and then it just cuts to black for a second. And then it cuts back and the ghost is just observing something different, but we don't know really how long has passed. Has it been 2 minutes? 2 days? 2 weeks? How much has actually progressed? Like, how much is the ghost missing? Does it miss the stuff that we're missing in the film? And I just found all that really fascinating about what it would actually be like to be this presence, this spirit-like, ghost-like thingy that's just kind of observing and not really being able to interact, and maybe it can interact a little bit here, maybe it can do some kind of ghosty stuff there. I won't really spoil any of that kind of stuff, but just in terms of like how kind of weird and lonely and just kind of off it would be. Like, there's one moment where the ghost is just kind of observing something that's happening outside the house, and it really gives you this sense of like you see the trees and the car outside and you're like, oh, you can feel that longing to just break out of this house and to trying to see any commotion or anything that's happening outside the house. It's so desperate to kind of view and see what's happening. At least that's how I read it. And I just think little moments like that throughout the film where I just got this really deep sense of sadness and loneliness that I just found really powerful and really interesting. And that's not even to mention to the actual story of the film that is about like the daughter of the family. We got a mum, we got a dad, we got a daughter, and we got a son. And they all get a bunch of juicy stuff to do, but we mostly focus on the daughter. Every actor in this is spectacular. I didn't recognize any of them except for Lucy Liu, who is a goddess, and we all love Lucy Liu. We've all loved Lucy Liu since Kill Bill, and she is fantastic as this really not overly likable mum at times. I just thought she was fantastic and just real. Everyone just felt really real. But the standout for me was the dad. Man, he had some, I can't deal with this as a dad sometimes, but he's really trying good dad energy. And I just love the dynamic of the family where the dad clearly gets along with the daughter more and the mum loves the son way more than the daughter, and they do not hide that fact. And it creates a really ugly scene, some really messy stuff, and I just felt like it all played out really realistically, where I believed everyone from scene to scene and how they reacted to each other, and then how they reacted to things in the back half of the film when kind of the plot kind of kicks in more, which I won't really spoil what goes on here, but it does play into them kind of thinking maybe there is a presence in their house, but there's also another subplot which felt more like, oh, we're doing a movie now. But then the way it tied back into the end, I did really enjoy, even though there was a moment, not midway-ish, but there was a moment in the film where I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I guess this is what it's going to be about. But then the last scene in the movie was so painful and incredible. I wanted to die, and maybe I still will, and will haunt me till my last day, until I die and become a ghost, and then it will still haunt me. So good, so good. So a lot of my issues were fixed by the end. Yeah, whew, I was very surprised how much I liked this movie. It overwhelmed me because I did think if we're just going to be like there's maybe 5 minutes at the start where the ghost is just like watching and stuff plays out, then it cuts to black, and it has another scene, and I was just kind of like, oh, cool, that's an interesting 5 minutes setup for the movie. I'm waiting for it to emotionally get me, and then bam, something happened, and I never stopped being enthralled by the point of view and the stylistic gimmick choice of the ghost point of view. It was so good. And that moment was done so brilliantly, and it got me in by this very, very clever use of silence and then music. This film has so much silence. This film has almost no musical score at all. And I love a musical score. Sometimes I do not want a film to have any silence. I just want to be gripped by a beautiful score the whole time. Or be singing and dancing to like a James Gunn, like needle drop type film. Like, I love music. But when a film can really harness and weaponize silence, mate, now we're cooking. And this film does it maybe better than I can remember any film doing it literally ever. The first 10 minutes, just dead silence. Like a couple of dialogue words here and there, but in terms of music and stuff, just silence. And it really kind of sucks you into the point of view of this spirit-like ghost, where it's just silent all the time, just silence. And then suddenly, when a certain kind of thing happens and kind of we change what we know about the story and where it's going to go and how the ghost can maybe, be as a ghost, or I don't know, it's hard to explain, but there's a moment and it's such a little change of everything. But then this haunting, just devastating piano score kicks in. I'm chills just thinking about it, but it was a moment where I was kind of sitting there like, this is an interesting film. I'm intrigued, but oh my God, this might be the greatest film I've ever seen in my entire life. It got its hooks in me. It was, yeah. And it's not just that moment. It isn't just and then there's music. It's no, then there'll be silence for another 45 minutes, and then bam, a musical score will kick in again. And by leaving you waiting and holding on for another kind of moment like that, when it hits, oh, you feel that bad boy in your bones. It's incredible. The score at the end of the movie, as it plays over the credits, just so emotionally powerful. And it's just such a, it really, really spoke to me. And I often kind of get up during the credits. Sorry, everybody who makes movies, but I don't know. I value my own time, and I want to get out of that cinema and stretch my legs and stuff. I don't know. What do you want from me, everyone in the credits? I'm not reading them anyway. But I sat and didn't read the credits, but just kind of sat in my own space as the music played and just carried me through right to the end, as I potentially tried to hold back tears because the ending shot is going to haunt me until I die. And then, as I said, I'll be a ghost, and it will still haunt me. So I am seeing a lot of this isn't horror type of stuff, and whilst I think if you're going in for a ghost story with spooks and scares and ghosty stuff, sure, yeah, you're not going to get that. It's not a traditional ghost movie, but hey, would you want every movie to be the same? This is a really unique, fresh take on ghosts, and it tells it in a really interesting way. It isn't scary at all in that traditional sense. I do think there are some horrific moments, especially in the back half. Really, really sad, powerful moments. But in terms of jump scares and spooks and stuff like that, none whatsoever. Very, very kind of character-focused story, and a lot kind of slower paced, maybe, than people are expecting. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what else you would want. It's not a ghost that's going all Casper on everybody, trying to well, did Casper do that? There's three guys that are hanging with Casper, where they're all whoa, they're ghosts! Or, I suppose, every ghost movie. It's not like that. I haven't seen it, but I think this is kind of more this is a ghost story, or whatever it's called, where Casey Affleck wears the ghost, like the silly ghost costume, but he's dead or whatever, that film. I feel like maybe it kind of feels more like that, potentially. I don't know why I said that. I haven't seen that movie. Overall, I absolutely love this film and highly recommend seeing this in a cinema. This is a must-watch in the cinema, but go to the cinema when you know it's not going to be filled with teens and stuff like that are all just there to throw popcorn and scream and shout like a slasher movie type thing. Luckily for me, I saw it with two people that were transfixed to the screen in silence, or they were so bored they fell asleep. Who's to say? So I would say see this in the cinema because it's one of those films where you don't want to have the option of getting your phone out or being distracted the way you kind of can be at home. I feel like it was very, very atmospheric, and it had this kind of like you want to be like absorbed by the film and let it take you on the journey that it takes you on. But maybe that's incredibly pretentious. I don't know. Watch it however you want. Bloody downloaded it in 480p out of focus. I don't care. Really good film. You won't like it watching it like that. It's a beautiful, incredibly well-made film. The cinematography and just the way it tells its story and the way it goes through it is so, so good. I absolutely loved it. More gimmick films if the gimmick is good and necessary. That's what I say. I loved it. It kind of reminded me in a bizarre way of like Searching. That film that's told entirely via the screen, and you're kind of like, oh, that sounds like a really weird gimmick. And then by the end of the film, you're like, you couldn't tell this story any other way. It's such a good way to tell a story because it's so unique and fresh. But it doesn't feel like they're doing it to be like, we did this thing. It's just like, no, this is how you need to tell your story. And the exact same thing here where this is the only way to tell this story without it maybe potentially feeling incredibly generic. I don't know. I loved it. I loved it so much. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. All right, so spoilers, big time spoilers. I'm going to briefly talk about a couple of things in spoilers because I don't know, I want to, I guess. So, spoilers, please turn away. I'm going to ruin the movie. So, the reveal of the movie, well, there's two reveals, I suppose. So, the whole film takes place and we're following daughter character. What's her name? I don't. Sometimes I just don't know these things. Daughter character is grieving over the loss of her best friend who OD'd off screen before the film started. And towards the end of the film, we find out her new boyfriend guy that's friends with her brother is the killer. And he tries to drug her to presumably kill her. And for the next 20 minutes before he tries again, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. So like this is like not going to be just like this family drama that a ghost happens to be observing, which I actually kind of thought was really interesting and tragic and beautifully horrible in that like the whole film, she's like, it's my friend, Deborah or Debbie or whatever. Like, it's my friend, my dead friend is here. And we're like, well, no, we kind of know like the rules of ghosts, and like a medium rocks up at one point and kind of says, it's probably died here. Like the ghost is probably someone that died in this house. That's kind of how ghost things work. And so there's this kind of sad tragedy to her thinking it's her best friend who's there as this presence in this house, but it's just some ghost. I don't know, it's just some ghost. And they have some kind of connection because she's grieving, the ghost is clearly grieving from something. And I really liked that angle for a little while. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay, no, like her boyfriend essentially is a murderer, and I thought that was a little bit kind of like, oh, now I'm just watching a film. I thought I was watching this really unique family drama that happened to have this horrific supernatural kind of angle to it. But then I kind of turned around on it and I'm like, wait, hold on. Is he going to kill her, and is she going to become the presence? And she's like watching herself, because there was one line that the medium said where it's like, the ghost is traveling through time maybe. Time is irrelevant when you're a ghost. And I love that. I love that time doesn't exist when you're dead and you can go back and forth and you don't know where you are and stuff. And I thought that was crazy. And I'm like, that might be too bleak and too cooked. I kind of can't believe that they're going to kill her and to have her be watching herself die. And I don't know. I was just like, I guess at that point I was so invested as well, where I was just kind of, I didn't really think about any other option, where I'm like, man, they're going to kill this chick, the main character, and she's going to become the ghost that's been watching this whole film. That's crazy. And then I was like, I don't know if I believe they're going to do that. And so even though in hindsight it feels very, very obvious, I was so shocked. I was so horrified. But the whole film came full circle in a powerfully emotional way when it was revealed that no, it's not going to be her brother. And they've had such conflict. They essentially hate each other sacrifices himself and kills his friend, the killer, and smashes out a window, and they both die, and he sacrifices himself for his sister. And then that final moment where we finally see the reflection of the ghost, where he finally is able to show himself to his mother, who unfortunately isn't the best mum and loved her son way more than her daughter. She just sees him, and the guttural, animalistic scream of pain and sadness from Lucy Liu will haunt me until I'm dead. Then I'll die as a ghost and it will still haunt me. So powerful, so emotional, ruined my day, was probably going to ruin my week. Just such a good way to end the film. I just loved it. I think maybe if I thought about it for 2 seconds, it would have been very obvious who the ghost was once he died. But at that point, the film was just moving so quickly, I didn't really have time to think about it. Really, really loved that. And I feel like it recontextualizes the whole film in this beautiful way, where you just think back on it all. And my thought of being like, I really like that it's just some random ghost. I'm like, no. It's far, far better that it's like her brother who's going to die in the future, who's traveling through time, because who cares about time? It's a ghost thing. Like, I think that's a really interesting kind of storytelling device and supernatural lore choice to make, to have the ghost be able to be omnipresent through time and space, and it doesn't even know what it is. And I found it really, really interesting and kind of powerful that it was the character that didn't believe in ghosts the most, and he thought it was all bullshit, to be the one that is the ghost the whole time. I thought was really, really sad and really interesting. I just thought it really, really worked, tying it all together in this really heartbreaking way, but also a little bit sweet and beautiful, classic bittersweet kind of thing, where our main character, who we like the most, the daughter, didn't die. And he sacrificed himself for her, despite every single second of this film having them butting heads so much. There is one scene where the ghost is super sad and shy, and it goes, and like the dad's like, I made everything worse. And the ghost is like, no, it was me, I made everything worse. And it runs off and hides in the closet of the daughter. And then it cuts, and the next time the ghost is there in the closet, the ghost, who is the brother, watches his sister fucking his killer / best friend, ex-best friend, I suppose. And in hindsight, kind of gross, because in the moment when you don't know who the ghost is like watching, like not watching, it's kind of out of focus, but he is there, and it kind of like moves a little bit to like block, like it hides behind some clothes, like block what's happening. Bro, that's your sister. Maybe leave the room. Not maybe. Leave the room, bro. So despite the fact that the presence in this film, the ghost, which was the brother, watched his sister fuck his killer, good film.